All right, so welcome everyone. My name is Rebecca Garelli. I'm a 20-year science educator, former NGSS instructional coach. Now I work with Activate and Open SciEd as a professional learning specialist. So I'm honored to be here with you all. And just want to invite you, before I talk about that link in the resources and how we're going to interact with that document, I'm just going to invite you to read through our goals for this tiny short time we have together today. So we're going to start with reflecting just a little bit. I'll ask you to think about your own thinking for a moment. Then we're going to engage in a few instructional strategies. And what that means is I need your help. I need your help to engage in the strategy. We are going to be using Jamboard just a little bit, but mainly using the chat box as our main function. So I'm really hoping you can dive in, join the conversation, get comfortable with a couple of these strategies, and then we'll do some deeper thinking about how do we get kids to make sense of science through writing and drawing? This is all about making thinking visible and ways we can do that. So to start us off, I'd like to talk about the link I gave you. And if you take a look at it, my contact information is up here. And if you don't have the link, I'll put it in the chat one more time. But if you do have the link, please type ready in the chat so I know how many of you are ready to go so I can explain how this works. I just need a little feedback, so thank you. Fabulous. Thanks for that feedback. Super helpful, makes me feel like I'm not alone and you're with me, so I appreciate you very much. All right, so this is pretty standard Google Doc, and here you've got the link. This is one of 5 webinars that we have forthcoming. If you're looking for the slides, I did give you a PDF of the version of the slide deck, so it's right here. And then if you notice, I have numbered these, and those are going to be useful. So I'll say, let's open number 2, let's open number 3, let's open number 4, etc. So as you go, we're not going to open every single one of these, but I wanted to make sure you had every single thing that I used to develop the experience at your fingertips, so that you weren't scrambling of how do I get that thing? I really want to use that. So everything's here. Just sit back and relax and just enjoy using these strategies. And the way you're going to know which strategies I'm going to engage you in, you'll see these number circles on the slides. So for example, number 1 corresponds to number 1. So you'll see these circles along the way just to help you go, wait, which one are you talking about? So just another helpful tool to make your thinking visible and to help you think about your thinking and how we get to these resources. So let's go with my favorite strategy. This is one of the productive talk moves called giving kids time to think. This is where I put you in the position of what we call the alone zone. So I'm going to ask you to think by yourself without the influence of anybody else. Think time alone in the alone zone. So for 1 minute, I want you to think by yourself and consider these 3 questions and be ready to share your ideas about one of them. And we will continue to drop the link, so don't worry about that. Here it is. But I'll start the timer now for 1 minute in the alone zone to commit to your own thinking without the influence of anyone else. So as you're thinking about these questions, remember, I'm going to ask you to share in the next slide. So thinking back to your previous times teaching science in terms of student writing and drawing, what was the purpose? What successes did you have? What strategies did you employ? And what were some challenges or questions you might have? So I'll be quiet. Alone zone think time starts now. We will share when the timer goes off on the next slide. I'm going to ask you to be prepared to share one of your ideas about one of these questions. All right, time is up. And I forgot to unmute the timer, and that's all right. Let's move on to sharing. This time, let's come into the chat and share one of our ideas related to, oops, sorry. Whoa, something is off with my clicker here. Here we go. So whole group share one question in the chat. You can either choose purpose, some successes, some strategies, or challenges. So find the chat. Let's just start thinking about our own thinking with writing and drawing in science. So thanks to our first participant, we've got communicating through multiple modalities, purpose again. Why do we do it? Synthesize, visualizing, capturing thinking. Oh, to show understanding. Yes. How do we know what kids are able to do unless they show us? Yes. Showing us what they're thinking at that point in time so we can help them, can probe their thinking, communicate. That's right. Recording, referencing, creating some sort of reference for later, showing us what they don't know, a window into their brains. I love this. All right, so we have lots of ideas are surfacing, right? And making thinking visible can be a lot of different ways. Today, we're going to touch on mainly a little bit of writing and a little bit of drawing and what that looks like. And so if you're continuing to drop ideas in the chat, please do so. I'm just going to gently push us forward just to keep going and help us with our learning. And now we're going to engage in a sense-making task so I can show you some actual structures for making thinking visible. Now, I had to create these for a digital space, so I hope you can just come on this journey with me, but know that everything we do in the digital space can be replicated in the classroom. So let's start with one of my most favorite phenomena. I borrowed this from one of the NSTA free daily do's. Why does the ice melt faster? And so our phenomena are observable event. We're going to watch this in just a second. So I just want to invite you to read the phenomena and the guiding question, and then we'll watch the phenomena in the next slide. So we have our observable event. When two ice cubes are placed on the blocks, one melts faster than the other. So that is going to ground our learning and anchor our conversations and our sense making through this process. So let's move on. I just wanted to touch a little bit about phenomena because I know we might have some newer folks in this space. One great definition for phenomena is these observable events, observations that we can make with our five senses that can be explained or explored through the three dimensions, the science and engineering practices, the cross-cutting concepts, and of course, the core ideas. And so when we think of phenomena, I'm going to be showing you something. The thing that you're going to be seeing is actually the effect. When we look around us in the real world, all these natural phenomena are the effect of something causing that thing to happen. And so I love to frame this using the cross-cutting concept of cause and effect, because that's what we're doing in science. Science literally seeks to explain the causes of that thing we see, which is the effect. So if we see things like condensation on a glass, that's something I see. There's a science reason causing that to happen. And our job as educators is to help kids figure out what is causing that to happen. So I want you to think about that as I engage you with the phenomena right now. What I'd like you to do, go to number three in the link. So if you come here, you'll see it says See, Think, Wonder chart. You're going to click on the one that says make a copy. That way you each have your own, and then we're not overloaded on Google Docs, and you'll have your own See, Think, Wonder table to use. When you're ready and you have it open, type ready, give me a thumbs up in the chat, something, so I don't leave you behind. So again, this is number 3 in the link. If you need the link, here it is. Open that link and click on number 3, make a copy. This way you all can write your own thoughts in your own space. Now, if I were with students in the classroom, I would be doing this inside of their notebooks. I would ask them to draw a See, Think, Wonder table, similar to a Notice, Wonder table, same idea. And so now that I've got folks ready, thank you for the feedback. What I'm going to ask you to do now is I'm going to play the video. I'm going to show you the phenomenon, and I want you to observe it. And in the C box, you're going to write only your observations. You're not going to go on to think and wonder just yet, because I like to do this in a very structured way with kids. Reason one, C means you're only going to be using your sense of sight right now because it's a video. In the C column, these should be very short bullet points of what do you see? What are your observations? We're not going to go into what do you think, like an initial explanation or your inferences just yet, because I need to have you focus and anchor your learning with this thing that you're going to see. So what do you see? For 2 minutes, I'm going to play the video over and over and over, and you're just going to keep adding to your idea pile in the C box. So just straight observations. Alone zone means you commit to your own thinking without the influence of others around you. So giving kids time to think, very important for making thinking visible. So I'm going to do that with you right now. So 2 minutes alone zone. Here we go. I'm going to play the video over and over for 2 minutes. Grab your See, Think, Wonder, and here we go. So as you look, think about what you are seeing, not what you think is causing it just yet. What do you see? What do you notice? Okay, there's about 45 seconds left. I will keep going to make sure your idea pile is robust and full of ideas. What do you see? What do you notice? Okay, about 20 seconds left. I'll play it one more time. Okay, so that is our timer. Finish up your idea pile and then come on back. And hopefully by now, imagine what just happened in your classroom. How many of the students have now had the opportunity to say something to the paper and make their thinking visible in the C box without the influence of other kids going, I see this, I see this, I see this. That time alone is so important to giving our kids something to talk about. So now let's go into, after I engage kids in the alone zone, I move into small groups. Now, since we're not in a classroom, I'm going to go whole group. But if I were with kids, I would have them in small groups go around. I used to like to number my groups 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'd say number ones, start the idea pile, read through every single one of your C observation. And as the other kids are listening, when you hear something that you have the same, put a check mark. Yep, me too. Yep, me too. Then number 2 goes, adds anything else. The kids go, yep, me too. And then it goes to number 3, then number 4s. And that way everybody has a voice and we're connecting to each other's ideas. So since we're not in a small group space, we're on Zoom, let's do this. We're going to do what's called a noticings waterfall. So what I want you to do is review your observations in your C box, pick 2 ones that you would like to share, and then find the chat box. But I'll give you 30 seconds to type in the chat, but do not hit enter until the 30-second timer goes off. Then we hit enter, and then it'll waterfall down, which means nobody has seen each other's ideas. And that way we're not stealing each other's ideas. So here we go. find the chat box, pick us 2 things or share 2 things, wait till the 30 seconds is up. When the 30 seconds is up, then hit enter and we'll have an idea waterfall. Then we'll look for patterns in our ideas. So grab the chat, don't hit enter. I know it's a hard thing to do. So remember, I'm looking for 2 observations, but don't hit enter just yet. Gather your thoughts, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, hit enter, time is up. So here we go. My job is to help us look for patterns. So help me out here. Let's go through the list. What I see is left melting faster. Melting left is faster. There's 2 blocks, 2 cubes, 2 cubes, 2 cubes. I got melting faster on the left than the right. Ooh, someone noticed the time lapse. Somebody noticed there's no water on the right side. So my job is to help us look for patterns in our ideas. So one thing I'm noticing is a very large pattern of the one on the left melted faster than the one on the right. Somebody else said the plates and cubes look identical. I saw that a few times. And so we're just looking for connecting with others' ideas. What observations did we share and have in common? And that's where kids will be doing the check marks. And then if there's any new ideas, you might want to add it to your idea pile. But what I like to do with the kids is say, if you heard a new idea and you want to add it to your list, ask me for evidence first, which means I play the video again so that students can see it for themselves. And when they have evidence, then it goes into their table. So that's just my favorite way of doing the C box with kids. So now that we've had time to share, it looks like we all noticed 2 really big patterns. The left melts faster than the right, and the blocks look the same. So let's keep going on our journey. Now that we've had time to share, we're going to move into the next 2 boxes. I like to structure these both at the same time with students, and I'll explain why. One, the think box is going to be like their initial explanation, kind of activating that prior knowledge, eliciting what they're thinking, but it might be too high risk for kids to share who might not have prior knowledge and might feel a little nervous about their knowledge. So for the think box, this is about what do you think is causing it to happen? And so it's going to help us think and get out our ideas, elicit that prior knowledge. I do not ask the kids to think. What I like to do is walk around the classroom. I like to use it as formative assessment and read the think box, gather, oh, here's a preconception, misconception. Oh, this kid knows something. I got to make sure this student doesn't give it away to the other kids too fast. So I like to use this box as formative assessment. So when I ask you to go back into the alone zone, just spend a little bit of time on what do you think is causing the one on the left to go faster than the one on the right. Then after a quick think, move on to the wonder. So you're going to do both of these at the same time, and I'll give you 2 minutes. When we move into wondering, this is really that practice of developing questions for a purpose. Asking questions is a science and engineering practice. One question I like to help the kids think about how to ask a good question is, what do we not know about the system the ice is in, the surrounding area? What do we not know about the phenomena? What missing information do we not have yet? What could we ask that could help us grab materials and test our idea? Grab the internet, maybe go and look for a video on how ice melts. Maybe grab a reading about how heat is transferred. And I do make sure the kids know that the questions will be something they will share in that small group structure. So I'm going to have you go back in the alone zone for 2 minutes. I want you to make your thinking visible in both of these boxes. Remember your initial ideas here. And what questions could we ask that we don't know about the system and the phenomena that could help us grab and gather the information we need to start making sense of why this is happening. All right, I'll be quiet. Let's go back in alone zone. Commit to your own thinking in the Think and Wonder box. We will share questions very soon. All right, so consider, what do we not know about the phenomena? Are you wondering about the blocks? What about the ice? What about the environment through which this is occurring? What could we ask to help us gather the information to investigate, to get out materials and test our ideas, to maybe ask or research through a reading or a video? What do we not know? All right, so time is up. I hope that was enough time to make your thinking visible. And one thing I wanted to add is students can use diverse sense making in these boxes. They can write, they can draw, they can use their home language. Anything is available to the students, however they want to make sense and make their thinking visible is always welcome in these See, Think, Wonder charts. So let's come aboard here. We're going to go to Jamboard. So in the link, let's find, I did build Jamboards by birthday. So let's go take a look real quick. I'm going to escape. And in the, this is number 4 in that, I don't know why this is not escaping right now. This is bizarre. There we go. All right, number 4, let's go take a look. I was anticipating quite a lot of people on this, so I got nervous and I made 3 different Jamboards. So if your birthday is in January through April, this is the one you're going to use. If your birthday is May through August, this is the one you're going to use, and September through December. And so when you get here, what I'm asking you to do is to review, and I'll go back to the directions, is now that you've had time to think by yourself, sorry, something is funky with my clicker today. Now that you've had time to think by yourself, we're going to prepare at least to share 1 question each. So come on into the Jamboard. And what I'm going to do, my job as the teacher, is I'm going to put these into categories about what do we think. Maybe it's temperature, maybe it's the material. So I'm going to look at your questions and I'm going to move them around and I'm going to add patterns in a different color. So I'm going to ask that you use yellow. Please use yellow. If you're new to Jamboard, all you need to do is come into this space, click this little button that says sticky note, make sure it's on yellow, and then type your idea and hit save. And then just let go. And I'm going to move them around and I'm going to put them into categories. So come on in. I've got all 3 open. Please make sure. Oh, we've got some folks doing +1s and connecting to each other's ideas. I love this. So we've got, and if you want to do some grouping as well, put them into groups. And then I like to make categories with a different color. So let's say these are all about wondering about if temperature is affecting the block. So anything with temperature, come on, connect it over here. We've got a temperature here. Ooh, substances. We're looking at materials. Materials of blocks or ice. Here's another category. Here we go. So some folks are wondering if the ice cubes are made of the same substance. Temperature, let's get that down with temperature. Ooh, materials. Someone's wondering, are the materials? What's up with the materials? So keep coming in. If you want to add more than 2 questions or 1 question, that's fine. So we've got temperature questions here. We're looking at materials. These seem to be the top 2 in this driving question board here. Temperature, temperature, heat. Oh, look at this, tons, heat. All of these are about temperature and heat. So let's get a category here. Going temperature and heat, perfect. These are all. Ooh, could we use a thermometer? That goes with this, temperature. Blocks, surfaces, materials, temperature over here. We got 2 top things that you guys want to study. You want to use to investigate. We got materials. Okay, so this is working out great. You're all wondering about the materials. Let's go check the 3rd one real quick. Same. We got substances, temperature, materials, temperature, containers, materials, heater. Okay, so it looks like we've got a pretty strong trend here. So it looks like you are all wondering about the same things. It looks like you care about temperature and the materials. So I love that people are connecting to each other's ideas. We're so used to Jamboard, it's fantastic. But now let's come back into the space that you've shared your ideas. So here we go. All right. I'm going to turn off my camera to make sure this goes a little faster. All right, we've shared, we've connected, we found that we are really wondering about temperature and the materials of those black blocks. So now in the chat, now that we want to think about temperature, materials, how could we actually test your ideas? What kind of investigations can we create? So in the chat, those of you who went the temperature route, what should we actually do physically to gather information about temperature? Drop your ideas. If you were wondering about the materials itself, what could we investigate? How could we do that? Put some ideas for investigations into the chat, and I will sit back and enjoy your ideas. Here we go. Take the temperature of the blocks. Great. So that means we need materials. Is that testable? Can we do it? Yes. Collecting temperature. We need thermometers. Great. Loving these ideas that are coming in. Take the temperature of the plates. Right. So we got the temperature of the plates, temperature as the ice melts. Choose different materials. Ooh, say more about that. What materials do you want to test? Say more. Let's go down that thread. What materials should we test? Keep coming. What are your ideas? Metal, glass, cement, plastics versus metals. Okay. Great. So we're wondering if we take two different materials, could we weigh them to see? We got people wondering if the ice cubes are the same. You want to analyze the stuff. Do they float and sink? Perfect. All right, so now we're all connecting to each other's ideas. I'm putting you in the position. Now let's go on our journey. Seems like a lot of you are very much wondering about the blocks. Are they made of the same material? Does the block material make a difference? And are they the same temperature? So does it make sense that we think about the blocks first and then add in some temperature? Let's go on our journey, since that's what you guys want to do. You definitely wanted to take the temperature and want to try different materials. So let's do that. Here we go. What I would now do is use these questions to drive the instruction. And so I would say to the kids, all right, I've got these two groups of objects. Group A look like this and could be things like this. Group B look like this. And in the chat, what do you all notice about the materials in each group? What do you notice? Somebody said, let's get out materials. Well, here you go. What do you notice about the materials? All right, we've got conductors and insulators, shiny, not shiny, different properties coming in. What else do we notice? Metals and non-metals. And the kids are going to get excited about this. They're going to be like, wait a minute, all those are, they all have something in common. Look at the pattern. So here we go. Once we do that, we bring out these materials. We ask the kids, okay, you're in the driver's seat. Let's pick one from group A, one from group B. Let's create some sort of data collection tool. And here it is. We're going to pick one from A, pick one from B, put the same ice cube. And yes, these are made of water. We could have them test that if we wanted to, but the main thing we were wondering is materials and temperature. So that's exactly what we're going to test here. So we're going to take the room temperature. We're going to touch the objects to compare them to see how they feel. We're going to take the temperature with some infrared thermometers. Then we're going to make some predictions about what do we think is going to happen when we put that ice cube on both those plates. Which one do you think is going to melt faster? And then we're actually going to calculate how long it took for each ice cube to melt. So we took those questions and we planned and carried out an investigation. And here is the answers. Really, this is the information we gathered. Here's our data. And this is actually something I did with a group of teachers the other day. So here we go. We've got group A's, which you all notice were metals versus non-metals. The room temperature is the same. The temperature of the actual objects is the same. So think about what patterns we see in this data, and do the patterns compare to your predictions? How do these patterns help us explain why the ice melts faster? And what do you think might be happening at the microscopic level that would help you explain? So remember, you were wondering if they were the same temperature? Guess what we just figured out? Did we just get the answer to that question? We just learned that not only is the environment the same temperature, the materials are the same temperature. So we could revisit the driving question board and answer that. Are they the same temperature? The answer is yes in this case. And again, we're playing pretend right here because we're in a virtual space. But right now we've got a really big answer as to the temperatures are the same. But they're the same, but look at the time. When I did this, it took 7 seconds for this one to melt. And this one never melted on the non-metal. So I took a wood cutting board versus a plastic. And so then we would move the kids into making thinking visible, which is why you are here. And how do we do that with kids? Well, one is to ask them to develop an initial model and explanation. This is not something I would assess right now because they are still learning and making sense. So right now I would give them this structure. And if you're looking for this structure, I built it in a Jamboard. It is number 5. We don't have enough time for me to have you engage in this practice, but I'm going to walk you through what I would do with kids. So first, I would ask them to develop and use a model to explain. And that word develop means something very important. It means we're going to have initial ideas. We're going to learn. We're going to make sense. We're going to revise. Then we're going to learn. We're going to make sense. And then we're going to have a final. So develop is an iterative process. And then we're going to use it to construct explanations about how or why the phenomena occurs, which is what this practice is all about. So I gave them a structure and asked them, put your ideas on paper. What's going on in your mind? What is happening in the metal one at a microscopic level? Then same for B, and then write your initial explanations. So again, we're making thinking visible through writing and through drawing. And then once they have something on there, whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. It's about learning because we're going to revise our ideas later on. I would ask them to then, after they go into the alone zone and do their own models, to then share, turn your notebooks, share your notebooks, share your models, go around the table, look for things you have in common, look for things you have that are different. Why do we want to look for things that are the same? Is because we're going to build a consensus model next, and consensus means the items we agree upon. Then we also can ask clarifying questions. This is where we bring in talk stems for kids. Can you say more about what this component in your model is? Can you help me understand what that little piece of drawing is in your model? And this is when we engage kids in those rich, equitable discussions about what they see and what they think. Then what we would do, in my case, when I taught this with kids, I now am ready to give them the academic language through obtaining information in a reading about what's causing the ice to melt. And I see you do have some questions, and I'll get to those. Let me just get through this process first. And so this is a reading I borrowed from another open educational resource, and I did link it for you, but look at what the kids will learn now. They will learn words like heat transfer, conduction, conducted, insulator, thermal equilibrium. And yes, this is a middle school experience. And so in their initial ideas, would I have them have this language yet? No, they weren't ready for it. That's just eliciting initial ideas. Now that they've gathered and I help them make sense of these words, we're going to take them and apply them to the phenomena now. So we go back. And then I ask them to revise their models because it is an iterative process. And they then apply this. And what I would help them with is make sure you include certain things like components and connections and relationships in your models. Something we use is called a gotta have checklist. Make sure you label the conductor, the insulator, draw arrows that show the direction and the amount of heat transfer. And make sure to show particles in that zoom space. And so as you can see, they come in, they apply, and then they revise their explanation. So not only are they redrawing, they are rewriting and applying what they just gathered to make sense of the phenomena. And so then what happens in a classroom and through many of the materials Activate Learning has is we now have every kid having their initial models. They went into the alone zone to apply that academic language. They may be feeling nervous if they're right or wrong, but in our classroom, that's okay. It doesn't matter because now they know they're going to share their notebooks again. And they're going to take each of their small group individual ones. So number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 in a group. They're going to share, look for those consensus items where they agree and combine their ideas in what we call a group consensus model on a large chart poster or on a whiteboard. So again, it's about talking, socializing, collaborating, making their thinking visible first in the independent think time, then going small group, then combining consensus ideas together. So they create a group consensus model. Now every group around the room is going to have these great models of their combined thinking. So we engage them in some sort of gallery walk. And again, we're looking for consensus items. So what do we notice are the same? And what do we notice is different in the different group models? Anything that is new, that's okay. We don't want to run back to our models and go, oh, that group had that, let's borrow their idea. Because you do not know if that group is correct. So I always say to the kids, travel with your group, but look for things in common, look for things that are new, but do not go back and revise yours because you don't know if that group is right or wrong. I'm going to help them make sense of what's right or wrong when we come back together and have a whole class sense-making circle discussion, where I'm going to ask them carefully crafted questions to extract from their minds and make their thinking visible as a whole class. We're going to combine all of our ideas. I will be charting the class consensus model and the explanation. While I'm doing that, what I ask the kids to do is, hey, get out your initial models. While we create the class consensus model, you may revise your model in real time. And this is how we help with sense making their thinking visible, allowing space to be wrong. If they don't have every component in the model, that's okay, because I'm going to help clarify all the things that need to go in the model or not, while they simultaneously revise their individual models. So this is what we call a developing and using models routine. It is in many curricular materials that Activate has, where we have to be cognizant of considering how many different opportunities do we allow and have structured intentionally for kids to make their thinking visible. When you look at this process, and this is just a graphic I created that I found very useful to help explain this process, is independent think time. Commit to your thinking, make your thinking visible. Share with others, social, collaborative. Combine ideas, connect with each other. Take it a step further, make a consensus model. Don't change your ideas when you're in the gallery walk, because I'm going to help you make sense in the final whole class sense-making discussion. And so this is a process and instructional strategies that will help us clarify those misconceptions. And after that, of course, we go back and revisit the driving question board. Which ones have we answered? Which ones have we figured out? And what evidence do we have to go with that? So I wanted to engage you in just a short sense-making activity to just show you some intentional structures on how to make this happen with kids. So now let's go into reflecting. What does research say about making thinking visible and writing and drawing in science? Well, from the fabulous book, Helping Students Make Sense of the World, which is basically how do we engage kids in the science and engineering practices, one of the 3 dimensions, I'm going to invite you to read this fabulous quote. So this is where drawing comes in, drawing and words, making thinking visible. And then, of course, best practices in writing. Let's read through this real quick. writing for different purposes. And we're going to reflect on the different ways I had kids and I had you engaging in these different writing and drawing strategies. So now we're going to go into shifts in thinking about writing and drawing. So I'm going to invite you to come to number 7 right here. This is a resource from OpenSciEd. Go ahead and read that. When you've got it open, please type ready, give me a thumbs up, some kind of emoji in the chat so I know you're with me. So we are in, this is number 7. Thanks for the feedback. And for a minute, once you've got there, this is number 7. I'm just going to ask you to read shifts in writing and drawing for sense making. So I'm going to ask you to do 3 things. And thanks for the emojis in the chat. I appreciate you. I'm going to ask you to read this, do a little reflecting, and then in that link, you're just going to make a copy, go to number 7 for those who are asking, just read it, reflect, and then think of, when did I have you do this in this lesson? And then share in the chat once a minute of think time is up. So back in the alone zone, independent think time. As you read, what structures did I intentionally build for you to do some of these things? So consider, where in this short, tiny sense-making task that I walked you through were opportunities for some of the things you saw on this side? All right, so in the chat, when did you see examples of this? Maybe you can write one idea that I engaged you with, maybe a different idea. Yeah, see, think, wonder, definite way of making sense, communicating to others. Time alone, definitely in the initial model. Yes, multiple at-bats. I love that phrase. I may borrow that, actually. Thank you. Jamboard questions to communicate, filling in the see, think, wonder. Throughout the whole process, there were times to stop and think, stop and draw, stop and talk with each other, go back and draw some more, go back and write some more. Fabulous. So let's keep going on our journey. Thank you so much. And so now let's dive in for our brief last moment of time together on actual instructional strategies. I only have you for an hour, so it's not like we can do all of them, but wait till you see how many we did talk about. So come on into this space. I'm going to ask you to open number 8, which is right here. Click this resource. It also comes from OpenSciEd. And we're going to go into that alone zone, time for you to think by yourself. Read through the instructional strategies. Now, I will preface this. This is a 2-pager. It's really only a 1-pager. It just showed up twice in 2 pages. So it's just 12 of them. So I'll be quiet for 2 minutes. We're going to do thinking and then typing in the chat. What are some instructional strategies we used in this task? And then I do want to hear out of this list, what is something you're going to maybe try or use more? What did you see me use? And what do you want to use? Yes. Got some folks chiming in. Love it. All right, so when you're ready, come on in. What are some you saw me use? And I know I went quickly, so I do apologize for that. What did you see me use intentionally? Yeah, graphic organizers, sentence stems, working together, building collaborative structures, Jamboard for DQB, alone zone time, a checklist. Yep, definitely. Got to have checklists. What needs to be in your model? Having students feedback. Yep. So what are things you might want to try? I like how you said that. I provided a graphic organizer, but I allowed you to have choice. You may write, you may draw, you may use your own language, whatever helps with those diverse sense-making strategies. Yes, the idea pile. Perfect. So now we've got some tools in our toolkit here. What is something you might want to work on a little bit more? Is there anything you really want to focus on that you can take back to the classroom, take back to the teachers you work with? What might we want to work on more? Any ideas are welcome in the chat. Ooh, I hadn't considered using image starters. Did I use an image starter? I did. I gave them a modeling scaffold. And sometimes in my classroom, I would have some with and some without, because sometimes kids love it and sometimes kids feel hindered by it. So that's one of those choice things. Yes, talking out loud, students being in the driver's seat, making their thinking visible. Self-evaluation, that's right. All right. Thank you so much. I'm just going to gently push us forward to kind of close us up. And again, this is those instructional strategies. We have to be intentional as the educators who are building these thinking classrooms, right? Where we have opportunities for kids to think through writing and drawing. One thing we need to be cognizant of is the independent think time. I know Open Syed calls it the individual stop and jot. I called it the alone zone. Whatever it is, kids need ample time to commit to their own thinking first, without the influence of those around them, especially the kids who may have a lot of background knowledge and may just want to say everything. Also, did you see how many times we have students by themselves, but then connecting to their peers, because that leads to all of us supporting each other. And that's that we versus me idea of our classroom norms, right? We co-construct knowledge together. Very important, social, collaborative. Writing and drawing should be social and collaborative because science is a collaborative endeavor. We need to mimic and model what science actually looks like in the classroom. And that's thinking alone, talking it out, brainstorming, and revising together. That co-constructing of knowledge. And of course, we have to be super flexible about the different types of strategies. What type of writing? What are the needs of the kids? What are those sense-making repertoires that the students bring to the table? How can we use those assets in their writing? And of course, what is the goal, right? I might have a goal for modeling versus constructing an explanation versus arguing from evidence. And I have to be intentional and build structures so that the students are empowered and can perform to my expectation. So it is up to us to build these structures. And here's some, here's some examples. In number 9, there's a fabulous example sheet of many different ways to make thinking visible. Not only graphs and charts, but drawing and writing, arguing from evidence, revising ideas, lots of different ways. And so I just want to remind you also that we do have more webinars coming up. This was one of 5 in a series. And to remember, the next one is coming up is on student sense making. It'll be with me again. All 5 of these are with me. August 28th is on equitable discussions and really diving into more of the structures. So I'll structure the See, Think, Wonder so you can see how to connect and structure for discourse or modeling, or all those parts and pieces. So how do we build that classroom culture where kids can actually function in this intentional space? So come back for some more learning. If you're wondering how to register for those, I did put the link right here at the top of your resource collection. So if you'd like to come back and hang out with us some more, that'd be lovely. And then finally, you can receive a certificate of attendance for coming today. So let me put that in the chat. And I will go back. I know someone had a question, but I always like to save, a couple minutes for questions. And here is the link. But if you have a question that you'd like me to clarify before our time is up, please ask it. I know someone had a question about the models. Oh, it's way up there. I think someone asked, did I provide that for them? At the beginning, I do not provide the structure for what needs to go in a key. By the time kids get used to developing models, they're used to putting things in a key. So it depends on where your kids are at. Beginning of the year, new to science, maybe you're 6th grade and they didn't have much in K5. So it all depends. At the beginning of the year, most of my kids did not put some kind of key. Over time, they get used to putting keys and describing the components in the model. Are there any other questions? I'm glad you liked the alone zone. All right, tell me then, what is one strategy you are going to take back with you from the list that we read, from what you saw in our very short lesson together? And then we are done. My name is Rebecca Garelli. So do student checklist for the activities. The checklist for you as a student. So we build the gotta have checklist together. So if you're using some of the Activate Learning materials, when you get to the instructional strategies, the idea is to ask the kids as you're doing the consensus model, does this need to be in the model? And the kids are going to go, oh, yes, we need it. Is it a piece of evidence? Is it relevant evidence that we need? So we have to, using a checklist like that is to weed out relevant evidence versus irrelevant. What do we have to have in the model to help us explain the phenomena versus what's the stuff that is kind of fluff on the side that doesn't need to go in the model? So in these instructional strategies, and you build a consensus model, you and the students co-construct that list together. Should we draw arrows? Yes. What should those arrows represent? Oh, heat moving, flow of energy, etc. So that's a co-constructing thing. And so let's see what the other question is. Yeah. So the checklist is for the whole class. And that way, when you do a transfer task, when you have them with an analogous phenomena, transfer their learning in a performance task, you should have a checklist, a gotta have checklist for them, because we want our students to be successful in making their thinking visible. We have to tell them the expectations and not hide it. It's not a secret. So when we do the actual lessons, they will learn what needs to go in there. Then they can apply their knowledge in the transfer tasks. So do students revise their model? I usually do not have students revise models after sharing with children because we don't know if those kids are actually right or wrong. So we look for connections for consensus and differences, where then we could take those differences and argue from evidence. But I do not have them revise because who knows if those kids are right or wrong. That's why it's my job in the consensus model to clarify all of it, and we build the checklist and they revise it in real time with me, because that's my job, is to help them with their thinking. So I do not have them do that. All right. So hopefully you, so all the resources and the slides are in that link. So I got to go back and find the link. Hang on.
I'll get it for you.
Okay, thank you. So yes, the slides are number 1. They are right here. And I did give you my graphic I made on the modeling routine. So it's right here. You're welcome to use it. Just give me some credit because I did make it. You're welcome. All right, hope to see you all again. And thanks for being here, spending an hour with us in the summer. Take care. And we are officially done for the day. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing this space with me. And again, this is a snapshot. So remember, the longer versions, you'll get more into the nitty-gritty on how do we actually do this. So thank you all. Nice to meet and work with you all. Have a great day. Thank you all. Yep, thanks for being here.
Hey, Tracy and I are staying on, Miss
I'm here. You know me, I'm here.
Roger. Roger that.
I forgot to hit stop recording.
I'll do it.